of the Water and Infrastructure Committee of February 3rd, 2025, please come to order. The time is now 1:32. May I ask that all participants please silence their noise-making devices. I'm your chair, Tom Cook. Members, per the Sunshine Law, please identify by name who, if anyone, is in the room, vehicle, or workplace with you today, exclusive of minors. Before we begin, I'd also like to ask the department representatives who have joined us today online to please also turn on your cameras when it's your turn to speak. Now I'd like to introduce the committee members. Council Chair Yukile Sugimura will be coming. Councilmember Gabe Johnson, Kuwe and Aloha.
Chair, council members, community members, there's no testifiers over here at the Lanai District Office. I'm alone in my workspace and ready for your agenda, ready to work. Mahalo, Chair.
And Aloha and Kuwe, Member Kama.
Aloha Winola, Chair.
And Aloha and Kuwe, Councilmember Alice Lee.
Hi, Chair Cook. Kwe is from the Algonquian Indians. I'm home in my workspace, alone, ready to go. Thank you.
Aloha and good afternoon, Member Paulton.
Aloha, Winola, Kako, streaming live and direct from Lahaina Luna High School. I have with me in the vehicle one unnamed minor. And as soon as they're finished unloading the tents, I'll have another adult in George Vieira. Thank you.
Aloha, Kuwe, and good afternoon, Member Rollins Fernandez.
Aloha Winola Kako, I'm Molokai Nuia Hina. I am at the Molokai District Office alone on my side of the office, and on the other side of the office, I have my entire team. Jantao Lindo, Keo Mailani, Hanapi Hirata, Mahealani, Bright Wilhelm, and Sarah Sexton, and baby Ava, in preparation for my town hall meeting this evening at 5:30 on Molokai. And there are no testifiers currently at the district office. Mahalo, Chair.
Good afternoon, Aloha, Member Sinensi.
Aloha Winola, Chair, and Kwe. There are no testifiers at the Hana District Office.
Good afternoon, and Aloha, Member Hodges.
Good afternoon, Chair. Good afternoon, everyone.
Today, from the Department of Water Supply, we have Mr. James Jensen, the Engineer Program Manager. From Corporation Counsel, we have Deputy Corporation Counsel Kayla Moreau.
Good afternoon.
From Corolla Engineering, Inc., Ms. Carrie Ishida, Vice President.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. And Mr. Matt Huang from the principal, he's the Principal Planning Engineer. Matt? I'm going to read on. Members, without objection, I would designate Mr. Huang and Ms. Ishida as resource persons under Rule 18A of the Rules of the Council due to their expertise in today's subject matter. They are the
No objections.
They are the consultants with Corolla Engineering, Inc., and have been working with the Department of Water Supply in creating the county's hydraulic model.
No objections.
From OCS, our committee staff, Keone Hurdle, welcome. Jared Pasquale, Lori Ann Tingan, Maria Leon, and Carla Nagata. Please see the last page in the agenda for information on the meeting connectivity. Good morning, everybody. Happy New Year, and welcome back to the first WAI Committee of 2025. Today's meeting, we have one item on today's agenda, WAI 1, Print 1, relates to the Department of Water Supply's hydraulic model study of Maui County water system. Members, if there are no objections, I would like to take testimony after receiving opening remarks in the presentation of WAI Print 1. Thank you, members. Members, the committee will receive a presentation from representatives of the Department of Water Supply and Corolla Engineering, Inc., relating to the Department of Water Supply's hydraulic model study of the Maui County water system. Mr. Jensen, you may share any opening comments following by your presentation, please.
Mahalo and aloha, Chair and members of the committee. Yep, I'm James, Engineering Program Manager for Department of Water Supply. Director Stuffelbein is currently meeting with Seaworm, and he will be joining us as soon as possible. Yeah, we're excited to share this presentation with the committee. It's a very important endeavor that's been a long time coming, and I know probably everyone on this committee has heard me at one point or multiple points in the past refer to this mysterious, nebulous thing that we're working on that we call a water model, and is getting very curious and anxious to see what it's all about. So I think we've talked in the past about how hydraulic calculations are very arduous, cumbersome things that in the past have been calculated by hand. And this tool that we're going to share with you today, I would equate it to like having 1,000 engineers in a room just cranking out calculations for you. It allows the math to be done in a way that simply was not practical in the past. So it's and the best part about it is it's like getting 1,000 engineers in the room, and we didn't have to go through a union consultation. So, you know, it's a good thing. If we could get the presentation on the screen, I'd like to walk through the first 3 or 4 slides before handing off to our consultant, Malo.
Thank you. Staff?
Thank you. I kind of covered that first slide. If we can just go through, go to the second slide, and I'll just give a quick overview of what we're going to go through. So initially, we're just going to talk about, or Matt's going to talk about what hydraulic modeling is, give kind of the overview of the workflow of building a model and everything that goes into it. Then we're going to discuss some examples of use, some examples of which we've already partaken in kind of as a part of beta testing and starting to just work with the model and interact with it to develop our own workflows between our staff and the model itself. And then we're going to close the presentation discussing next steps and future work that will leverage the model for. Next slide, please. All right, so we're going to start with discussing hydraulic modeling. And next slide, please. Yeah, that one wasn't too exciting. So I'd like to, this is the exciting slide here. I have gotten to know Matt Huang over the last almost a year now. Hard to believe I've been with the department for almost a year. And Matt's, he's, you know, this is one of those things where you've got to hire the best. And Matt's prepared models like this for hundreds of municipalities across the country. And he really knows what he's doing and good at explaining things and thinking about all the gotchas along the way. So without further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce Matt Huang. Thank you.
Mr. Huang, we see your mic is unmuted, but you might have to go into your settings to adjust your microphone options.
This is Carrie Ishida with Corolla. I don't know if Matt's having some technical difficulties. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
I can try to start, but really this is Matt's gig. I can do my best if
We
if
can
you'd
give him
like
some
it.
time to try and get lined up.
Okay. Okay.
We're excited to have you here. Welcome. It's okay. Relax. Get hooked up. I'd like to welcome Vice Chair Sugimura.
Sorry I'm tardy. Nice to see you here and looking forward to the presentation.
Chair. Chair.
Yes, Ms. Roland Fernandez.
Chair, would you like to take a brief recess while we try to figure out tech issues?
Yeah, we'll take a 5-minute break.
5.
Be back at 1:47, 1:48. Members, welcome back to the WAI Committee. It is now 1:55. We're going to reconvene after a little technology hiccup. Want to welcome Matt for his presentation, and if you could pick up where we left off, James.
Great.
Introduction, and he can just...
Yeah, so I've known Matt for about 9 months now. He's been with Corollo for quite a while now, and he's up there in the food chain there. Corollo is a national firm. They specialize in water and wastewater consulting, and Matt's built more than his fair share of hydraulic models for his clients across the country. So it was very nice to, having not been a part of the selection process for this consultant, that I was able to come on board the DWS team and already have Matt working on this for us. So it's been great to get to know Matt and to get a sense of his expertise on this subject, and I look forward to his presentation to the committee on this subject. Thank you. Take it away, Matt.
Great. Good afternoon, committee. I'm glad to be here today. I apologize for the technology difficulties. My name is Matt Huang. I'm the project manager for DWS's hydraulic model. And I also currently am serving as American Water Works, the vice chair of the Engineering Modeling Applications Committee, which focuses on using these types of models. Next slide, please. Would like to talk a little bit about the scope of work that we are doing as Corollo is doing as part of the hydraulic modeling project. Beyond the hydraulic modeling, we did an asset inventory of the facilities in DWS's system, and we also performed a condition assessment of the water treatment plants, the groundwater wells, tanks, and booster pump stations, and prioritized those for replacement and rehabilitation. From the modeling perspective, we converted the DWS's current fire protection plans. They have been maintained in CAD over the number of years, and we have converted that to GIS, Geographical Information Systems, which is the mapping database that is used throughout most of the industry. We built and calibrated 5 hydraulic models for DWS for each of the 5 water systems. So Lahaina, Molokai, Central, Upcountry, and East Maui. We performed a system evaluation on the water system using the hydraulic model, looking at the ability to convey pressures, or deliver pressures, convey fire flow, available storage and booster pumping, and the capacity of pipelines. And so we are in the process of developing and recommending projects to DWS. We will be conducting a hydraulic model training with DWS staff, so DWS staff can do this work in-house and not rely on a consultant or an outside party, and also develop model maintenance procedures so this model will be kept up to date as additional pipelines and new facilities are constructed. James, any other comments here?
Nothing to add here, Matt. Thank you.
Next slide, please. So what is a hydraulic model? Basically, it's a hydraulic model is a mathematical simulation that predicts how water moves through a water distribution system. And so the model contains potable transmission and distribution system pipelines, and the model contains every pipelines on every street within the DWS service area. This model contains water sources, so water treatment plants and groundwater wells where water is supplied from. It has storage facilities, reservoirs, and tanks that are within the distribution system. Booster pump stations. Booster pump stations are used to pump water from a lower elevation to a higher elevation. And it also includes pressure reducing stations where water is moved from a higher elevation to lower elevation. Mr. Jensen, do you have any additional comments here?
Yeah, I do have one. I'll try to explain this briefly without sounding too engineering, but I made the reference to this model being like having 1,000 engineers in the room cranking out calculations. And what I mean by that is when you're doing hydraulic calculations, it's all about, how many directions is water going. So if water is just going one direction from point A to point B in a single pipe, it's a pretty straightforward calculation. But when water is going, say there's two directions water can go to get to the same point, it becomes about balancing the energy loss in those different directions. And in order to do that, you have to have an equation for each direction. So for each of these systems, like central and upcountry, there are hundreds, if not thousands of directions that the water can go. And on paper or even in Excel, those calculations simply are not practical. So this software is robust, and the model computes all of these things. I'm not sure how long it takes from hitting the go button to actually getting the results, but it's a lot longer than trying to do things by hand. So that's where the power of this tool comes from. Thank you.
Next slide. So in response to James' comment, the model calculates results in about 30 seconds for about 1 day period, which is a lot quicker than doing these calculations by hand. We went through this process of developing a hydraulic model for DWS. There's kind of a 3-step process of model development, calibrating the model, and using it to evaluate the water system. So in the model development, we had to obtain the pipeline attribute data, which was currently on the fire protection maps in CAD. We added the facilities, so the pump stations and the reservoirs and the pressure reducing stations, including their attributes, and those had to be collected. Some in the field and others from record drawings. We added elevations because elevations is important for determining pressure at a location. We added demands in the model using billing data. The thing about demands is demands represent how much water is used at a particular location. And because you bill each of your customers, that data is available, and we were able to add that to the model. And then we added usage patterns, different parts of the system and different parts of the community use water at different times of day and with different types of peaks. The next stage is model calibration. The purpose of the model calibration is to verify that the results that the model is giving is representative of what is going out in the field. So we collected a large amount of field data. Some of it is from the existing SCADA system, which is the supervisory control and data acquisition system that DWS already has, that collects data on flows and pumps and pressures and tank levels. We also installed some temporary flow meters, temporary pressure loggers, ran some hydrant tests to collect additional data. And we compared model results and field data, in some cases, making modifications to the model so that our model reflected what went on in the field. From there, we used the model to evaluate the existing water system, looking at system pressures, pipeline velocities, capacities of pumps, and looked at the ability for tanks to refill. Additional questions or additional comments, James?
No, Mahalo.
Next slide, please. So for these next 4 slides, we are going to be giving some examples of the use of how this model is useful to DWS, not in terms of just the past, but looking at the future and how this model can and will be used as part of DWS's processes. Next slide. Oops. Do we have the next slide here?
Chair, I apologize. The slides that we received were only up to 9 pages.
If you can allow me to share, I can share my screen.
Hi, Carrie. Yes, you can share your screen now.
Okay, great. 1 second, share the right screen here.
So the hydraulic model can be used, well, for generally in three large categories. One is to meet regulations and to confirm that the water system meets regulations. The second one is to confirm that the water system can provide service according to a land use plan. As you know, the council has approved an existing land use plan, or a land use plan for the county, and so it is the water, from a water system side, from our planning, the intention will be to meet that land use plan that the county commission has already approved. And the third area is to address operational concerns, and so I'll be giving some examples of each of these. James, any comments here? Kind of as an overview.
Yeah, that first bullet about meeting regulations, it's not necessarily like regulations above the department. It's a lot of times to deal with our standards. So for instance, what kind of pressures are we supposed to have in our system at the delivery point? What kinds of velocities do we have under regular flow and under fire flow conditions? So that's generally what it means about testing the system to see if it meets our own standards. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Next slide, please, Carrie. So we have 4 examples here of different ways that the model can be used to evaluate the system. First one is available fire flow. And for example, there may be a new development, and the hydraulic model can be used to assess the ability for a hydrant or standpipe to provide a target fire flow rate. And so there may be a new development or a public facility, perhaps a critical customer like a hospital, and the target. And so we can run the model to identify if the target fire flow rate can be achieved at this location. And if the results show that the existing piping is unable to meet fire flow, then the model can be used for simulations, using some different potential solutions to evaluate whether those potential solutions would improve fire flow into the area. And so, it may be larger pipes installed. It may be a loop or a new pipe from a different direction. There are different solutions that engineers could develop to increase the fire flow, but the model simplifies the ability for the engineer to try out some different options, whether those options would increase the available fire flow at a location. James?
Yeah, I like this example because it really shows how we have the ability to kind of play a little bit of guess and check when we want to see what kind of improvements are necessary to make something possible. So those two lower pipes, if only those were increased in size, then, we'll improve the energy loss through those pathways, but everything else is going to kind of operate the way it had before. It's just that there will be a little bit more energy available in that middle area. The upper right, adding that pipeline in the upper right brings water from a completely different direction, and that's where the big change happens. And to do that in Excel is just it. You really can't play the guess and check game. So that's what's great about a tool like this. Thanks.
Next slide, please. So this model also allows us to prioritize improvements for fire flow. For example, this is a section of the upcountry system. We note there's a lot of pipes that are less than 6-inch diameter. And in general, we know that pipes less than 6-inch diameter do not have the capacity to deliver the desired fire flow that DWS would like to convey. And so the model suggests that there are a number of locations in each system that cannot meet the full recommended fire flow. And that's due to small diameter pipes. And it's a condition that's common in all systems, not necessarily just upcountry. But these results also will help DWS prioritize improvement projects because all these projects can't be done at once. And so those that deliver the lowest amount of flow could be prioritized first. James?
Yep, nothing to add. Thanks, Matt.
Next slide, please. But it's not just fire flow. One thing that we are currently using the model to look at is the impact of new groundwater wells. In the upcountry system, DWS has identified a number of existing non-municipal wells that could be used to connect to the water system. And so we are using the hydraulic model to evaluate the best connection points and benefits to the system for each of these wells in terms of the benefits to pressure, maintaining tank levels, and the hydraulic model can help show what area a new supply such groundwater well can serve. And so with that, we are prioritizing these different groundwater wells or potential groundwater wells that could be connected to the DWS system to identify which ones might bring the greatest benefit to DWS if these wells were used for municipal supplies. James?
No comments. Thanks, Matt.
Okay. Next slide. But this is also a potential concern. The model is also helpful not just for engineering, but for engineering support of operations. We have a tank here. This is kind of in the Wailea area, and DWS is looking at removing the tank for 1 to 2 weeks for maintenance. And so the hydraulic model, we were able to run a simulation of the hydraulic model with this tank offline to evaluate the impact of removing this tank temporarily from service and look at pressure, fire flow, the ability for the pumps to pump, and give recommendations to DWS on what kind of fire flow would be able to be delivered during this time. Can flow be delivered to customers during this time? And this is something that DWS has never really had a tool in the past to be able to do this kind of evaluation. And so it's brought some insights that DWS is able to use to make some decisions. James?
Nothing to add, thanks.
Next slide, please. So just a few comments here on next steps and future work. Next slide, please. So as part of our current hydraulic modeling project contract, Corolla will be providing input for the capital improvement program based on existing needs. We presented some preliminary results to DWS staff, but they are reviewing it and considering those as part of upcoming CIPs. As I mentioned earlier, we'll be conducting hydraulic model training to enable DWS staff to perform evaluations in-house. This software that we're using is called InfoWater Pro. It's a commercially available software that's used by a number of utilities and engineering firms. So this is, DWS is not, could use this in-house, but they could hire, a variety of engineers to do evaluations for them, as well as develop a process for model maintenance. James?
Nothing to add. Thank you, Matt.
Okay. Next slide, please. In terms of potential future work, one thing that DWS is considering is to perform a master plan for the water systems. As of now, we have used the hydraulic model to evaluate the existing system based on the existing demands, but there is an approved land use plan for the county, and this model would be very helpful to define the infrastructure and supply needs to serve the already approved land use plan. The other portion, a study that we have recommended that DWS consider is also looking at prioritization for replacing aging pipelines and look at the potential water supplies to meet future needs. Back to you, James, and that was my final slide.
Thank you, Matt. I have no further comments on the presentation. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, Chair, this is John. I just wanted to add, sorry I was a little late. I was in another meeting on calculating sustainable yield in West Maui. But I just wanted to point out that you've been listening to two engineers. This is what excited engineers sound like. This is really very exciting that we have this new tool. And, we're really excited about the fact that this is going to be something that will help us be more efficient, manage our system better, process permits faster. And so again, I want to thank them for the presentation. Thanks.
Chair Cook.
Member Paulton.
I had a point of clarification. When they were saying land use plan during their presentation, were they referring to like the community plan or the Maui Island plan?
Yes. Correct.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
James, that's correct.
And if I need to,
Our existing land use plans that have always been, the desire has been able to see what infrastructure would be needed and what costs would be needed. This is the tool kind of that we've been looking for to enable us to address those questions that have not been able to be answered in the past.
and if I need to disclose it, I'm at my home at the kitchen table, and it's the same people with me, plus one minor canine.
Okay. Thank you for staying with us. So thank you for the presentation, and Director took the words out of my mouth because I'm sitting there all excited and I'm looking at everybody. I'm going like, yeah, I think this is more like a building engineering kind of thing. Members, if there's no objections, I'd like to take testimony after receiving the thing. Okay. Do we have testifiers?
Chair, we currently have no individual signed up to testify. Would you like me to do last call?
Yes, please.
If anyone would like to testify in the chamber or on Microsoft Teams, please raise your hand or come down to the podium. This is final call. The countdown is 3, 2, 1. Seeing none, Chair, no one has indicated that they wish to testify.
Okay. Members, seeing that there are no more individuals wishing to testify, without objections, I'll now close oral testimony. Okay, as a reminder, written testimony will continue to be accepted into the record. Members, I'm proposing 2 rounds of 3-minute questions per member. Are there any objections? Okay, thank you, members. Let's begin with Councilmember Johnson, because Vice Chair Sugimura isn't here right now. Member Johnson?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. Is Director Stufflebean available for this round of question? I saw him pop on. Is he staying? Is he staying? Okay, I can switch up some questions.
Yes, I'm here. Yes, I'm here. Sorry.
Okay, so Director Stufflebean, I could see that the engineers were excited. How's the department? I know it's important to gather data, but then we end up, what are you going to do with the data? What type of policies, that you might be interested in changing? Is there anything that this council here can help you with as far as any county codes that are helping or hindering you, or hindering, I should say, that doesn't help you achieve the goals that you're setting out for?
So I think they covered pretty well what this model helps us do. But on a separate track, we are preparing to bring to the council our recommended revisions to the county code. And they are extensive. We've been doing, it's been really months in the making that James has led this effort. And we're going to be bringing a lot of changes to the code that we think will make things more efficient and streamlined, while still maintaining, protecting public health and being, fair and equitable to our customers. So stay tuned. We're probably coming right after budget season, I'm guessing. It's really, we finished with the work and it's now being looked at by the Corp Council, and we're also reviewing it with the community, with the engineering professional societies and contractors. So yes, we will be bringing those forward as well to help make things more efficient.
That's great news, Director. Thank you, Chair. No further questions this time.
Member Kama?
Thank you, Chair. So, James, are you folks going to build just one hydraulic model? And is one all you need for what you need to get done?
Thank you for the question. So it's one model per system.
Okay.
And just with where software and computing power is these days, Central District is able to be one contiguous model, where in the past, to model a system like that, you might kind of stitch together some smaller ones. But yeah, it's 5 total models. Central District, I think, is the largest. Upcountry is probably the most complicated because of all of the elevation. But yeah, this is all we need for now. And then as development happens, or new subdivisions, or we make improvements to the system, we will append the model with those changes. So it'll always be, we're going to always be reacting and modifying it to be what is currently in place.
So do you already have the funding for this first model, or this particular one that you're working on right now?
Yeah, this model is complete.
Okay.
and ready for use.
Okay.
Yep.
So do you anticipate in the future having to need more funding? I know I just heard Director Stufflebean say that probably after budget, you're going to come back and continue and share with us what all more you're doing. But do you anticipate any more after today? I mean, after this one model is put together?
So we are asking for funding to leverage the model into system master plans. The model right now just represents what's physically out there. The system master plans are going to be what Matt had referred to earlier about seeing what is needed to make the island plan and all the community plans feasible.
Yeah.
And then we will need some operational funds on an ongoing basis to maintain the system. And then ultimately when we don't have consulting support for it and we have some of our staff trained and working with the model enough to maintain it, then it should be covered through our regular staff and operating funds.
Do you have a sense of
let me just add that. I just want to add that what this model really does is it helps us optimize our spending. So as we develop our capital projects, this model will help us identify which capital projects will have the biggest benefit. And that's really important that we want to make sure we're spending our money efficiently. And I did see Matt have his hand up. Chair, if we can recognize Matt.
Okay.
Thanks.
Correct.
I wanted to note that the model does permit multiple scenarios. So even though there's 5 models, one for each of DWS's systems, we evaluate the system under different conditions. For example, a time of the year where the demands are higher versus kind of an average year, and we can set up different scenarios appropriately. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I'm not an engineer, but when you were talking about what was exciting and what wasn't exciting in this presentation, I thought, that's not exciting to me, but now I can understand why you're excited. So thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Chair Lee, you have questions?
Okay, so from your preliminary studies of everything, have you found any information that might be useful to us at this point about water sources, more available than you thought, less available than you thought in a particular area? More challenges, less challenges? Which ones would you prioritize?
Director.
Yeah, so I would simply say that at this point, what the model has helped us identify is where there are shortcomings in our system that need to be addressed. And that's been the primary output so far. And that's been extremely helpful. So now as we develop our capital program that's related to making sure our system is delivering as it needs to, we have information now to help us do that. It also helps us identify if we add a new source at point A versus a new source at point B, which one's the most valuable to the system. So it helps us evaluate where the best places are to add new sources to the system. That's what the value of this model is.
Okay, wouldn't the priority be West Maui?
Well, sure. I mean, but we're doing it all at the same time. I mean, there's needs. I would say there are needs on West Maui. There are needs up country. There are needs in the central system, and Hana and Molokai as well. Different needs there because it isn't really a water source issue as much. But you bet. I mean, we're certainly the model is done in West Maui. We're moving full speed ahead to identify how we can use the model in West Maui to optimize things. And of course, we do have the opportunity to get quite a bit of federal funding for projects that will have a huge impact on our system. That is focused on West Maui, but there are projects all over Maui that are within the funding. So we're looking at improving all the systems together. Obviously, West Maui is a special condition. You're right.
Okay, so the federal funding you referred to, is it the DR funding or other federal funds?
It's the DR funding and 4 or 5 other sources of funding that we've been going after a wide variety of sources, and so it's certainly the DR funding. It's funding from EPA, from FEMA, from Bureau of Reclamation, from Department of Agriculture. We've been going after funding in every place we could think to find it, and we think we have a good chance of getting a lot of different things. I mean, things may change because of the new administration, of course, but we think we're in good shape for that.
Thank you. Thank you, Director, for that information. But how many vacancies do you have so that we know that you're able to handle X number of projects?
So in engineering, we're way better than we were. We have 16 engineering positions. 2 years ago, we had 7 filled, and now we have 13 filled. So we've made a huge progress in our internal engineering, but also we do absolutely recognize that we're going to need consultant help to deliver all these projects. And so we have consultants already on board, and we'll be coming forward with additional consultant needs to help us deliver these projects.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, because I think our existing staff is overwhelmed and we're going to have to outsource. But thank you for the update.
Member Paulton, you have questions for our presenters?
Thank you, Chair. When you were speaking about fire flow and adequate fire flow and like that. I just wanted to clarify, you know, like I live in an experimental design subdivision, and I don't think our hydrants are up to like the standard. And will that be corrected possibly through this water development plan, or noted to be corrected, or no? And then also, you know, like with all these mega fires that we're seeing, our system wasn't the only one not to have water in the system. And is that what we build to this day standard, like a mega fire where the entire town burns down? Or is it gonna be the fight 1, 2, 3 houses fire?
Either Director or James
Or Matt?
or Matt.
Yeah, I can start that. So, so we will identify the fire flow needs in every pipe in the entire system. So we, yes, absolutely, we'll include the experimental areas, of course. In terms of the fire flow, we have standards that we use to determine the fire flow needs in terms of the velocity and pressure, and those are based on industry standards. It is true that there really is no fire system that anybody knows of that would handle these mega fires. It's unfortunate, but it's true. We saw that in LA as well. You know, we will build to the current standards, probably at the kind of at the top of the level of what the current standards are. But that is our objective, is to build it to the American Water Works Association standards for water systems.
Okay, and then the areas that are experimental in design, are we gonna bring them up to the regular standards?
Right. So we're looking at throughout the entire systems where the fire flows are where we most need to make improvements. And so to the extent that some of those would be in the experimental areas, then they would be prioritized. Yes.
Okay, and then the specifics of your guys' land use plan or the community plan, I don't know that it has conditions that were part of the change in zoning or whatever. Like Pulelehua, we attempted to try and remove the condition that Maui Land and Pine, provide their own water for the project, which is kind of weird because they're hearing a bill at the state about like the state getting all the systems and then making the county run them. And then, you know, Pulelehua is a affordable housing project, but they got to, so I just was wondering, when you say that you want to have water to be able to satisfy the land use plans, is that taken into consideration? Is there like little notes somewhere, like where the water is supposedly supposed to be coming from, or you guys are working to provide water for all the plans on the books?
I'm going to ask James to address that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
James, the water guy.
Thanks, John. Appreciate that. So from a full build out perspective, the model would look at all the currently allowed land uses in the island plan, and then if property was subdividable, it would likely look at what is at least the average density of that subdivision. Sometimes it's appropriate to look at what the full density is. I think if a specific zoning application comes through, like if there's paperwork regarding an application for land development or some kind of an entitlement that changes what the allowed use looks like, the model would be modified to incorporate that. So if it is detached from our water system from a land use standpoint, then the model would not incorporate it. Or if it was added to the system through a land use application, then the model would incorporate it, is how I would imagine that playing out.
And by Maui Island Plan, it only goes to the Maui Island Plan, not down to the community plans?
Yeah, it would go down to the community plan level.
Oh, okay, cool. Thank you for that clarification. Thank you, Chair.
See, James could handle that better than I could.
I'm pretty sure my bell rang. My time's up, right, Chair?
Yes, thank you. We'll have another round.
Okay.
Councilmember Rollins Fernandez, questions for our presenters?
Mahalo, Chair, and mahalo to our presenters. Okay. And mahalo to staff for updating the presentation on Granicus. The earlier presentation didn't have all the screenshots and graphics and the maps and stuff. So mahalo for that. Whoever wants to answer this question. So in the presentation where it shows the different maps of the area where the pipeline could potentially be, are those screenshots from the model?
Yeah, Matt, go ahead.
Matt?
That actually, so there are a combination of maps that we use. Some of them are model screenshots. That specific map was actually on the fire protection maps that the department uses currently.
Okay, so then you would enter in the size of the pipe in that area, and then it would, the model would show what the flow rate would be if that size pipe was installed?
That is correct.
And then, so like for Molokai, one of our main lines along Kamehameha 5th Highway is old, and it bursts in areas, and so there's been Band-Aid fixes, but there's never been like a full, so wherever there's fixes, then the pressure just increases in different areas. Member Polton asked if there was going to be like little notes. So in the model, are there notes where like there were Band-Aid fixes, or will there be like a plan to, like fix a good portion of the area of the pipe so that there isn't continuous bursts?
So I'll start by saying that, I'll just start by, and then I'll turn over to you, James. So I'll start by saying that, we do have for example, the map of the Molokai system, and identify the areas where the model shows that there are shortcomings. We then truth check that with our field staff, and the field staff have been heavily involved with this, and they've said, they say things like, "Oh, you should know that this situation exists, or that there's we've worked a lot in this area," and then does it seem like the model, fits reality? So that's an important part of this process, is to connect with the field staff. James, I'll let you take it from there.
Thanks, John. Yeah, so if the pipeline is being repaired frequently, but its size is appropriate, then the model would probably say, hey, no need for an improvement for the system to meet standards, but our condition assessment and our work order records are going to reflect a high frequency of maintenance. So projects that have a high frequency of maintenance actions they find their way into our CIP for sure with waterline replacement projects. Thank you.
Hello, James. And so for like a main line like that, because that's through Kaunakakai, and I think like that's the only one. Would you folks then come up with a recommendation to create like a different line, or because that's shutting that off just seems like it wouldn't really be a feasible option, And I'm sure Maui has that too.
Yeah. When we only have one way for water to get across town, that's always something that we want to look at, and look at having if there's already a right-of-way that we can send water in another direction, or if we have to potentially acquire an easement from someone. I would say that if we see a situation where we're doing shutdowns for this reason or that are consistently putting customers out of service for periods of time, then some kind of a looping project is gonna get onto the radar and become important. It's hard to really say what kind of would be the tipping point to make it a high priority, but I think it would just be volume of work orders and, you know, PR releases where we're letting folks know that this shutdown's happening, and especially if there's kind of sometimes there's a clever solution where we're not really having to go through an act of Congress to make something happen. So it's hard to pinpoint when we would react, but those are situations we would like to avoid with having our guys constantly dealing with headaches like that.
And I'll just add that he mentioned loops. I mean, so you may have probably heard me over the years talk about how much we all love loops. And so one of the things the model has done is already identified places where a fairly simple addition will give us some loops and solve, you know, provide a much more robust system. But we're certainly looking at how we can add loops to the system. In some cases, it's really hard. You know, it's a really long, but we're looking for loops as many cases we can, because it enables you to make these repairs without taking people out of service, for example. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, I'm excited about this modeling too. Mahalo for getting this done. Mahalo, Chair.
Thank you. Member Sinensi, any questions?
Mahalo, Chair, and mahalo for the presentation. Just a couple questions. Does acquisition of private water systems part of this hydraulic model in an attempt to add source to the system?
So I would say that what the model enables us to do is to evaluate how a potential private water system would fit into the county system. So it would help us to identify what would happen if we suddenly, you know, connected it together, what potential upgrades would need to be made, additional connections, and then how that would benefit potentially the county system as well. So it doesn't really, you know, we're still the decision makers as to whether we would buy a private system, but this will help us, this will give us some really good information on the value of that and the needs that we would have to experience in acquiring it.
Okay, thank you for that, Director. And then we too in East Maui, we experienced some intermittent bursts in certain areas, as you probably already know. But would the plan also tell you the reasons to either increase the diameter of certain pipes? I guess if you're adding development, then you would need to add a larger pipe. But does this model help you to determine that?
Sure, I'll let James go ahead. You can answer that one.
Right. Thanks, John. So yeah, the model it runs and then it spits out results based on certain rules that we give it. So we'll run a scenario for, say, average daily demand plus fire flow, and whatever the most restrictive rule is, the model's going to tell us whether it passes or fails. So in a situation where we have a small pipe where we should have a large pipe, we're either going to violate a velocity rule or a pressure rule or something like that, and then it's going to tell us, because when we open it, it'll probably, you know, that pipeline will be highlighted red or something to kind of stick out to us. And if we are plugging in a development to see what happens, which is great for at the planning stage being able to write conditions of approval, because you can make nexus and proportionality findings around what that development is responsible for. If you plug in that project and then you run it and you see maybe that project changes the fire flow if it's a rezone, that can be another rule that comes into play. But yeah, by giving it all the rules to think about, if it's going to fail a rule, it will find it and it will tell us.
Okay, great, thank you. And then Chair, we've seen all of the different flooding that happened this weekend, right? So does the hydraulic model also address storm systems?
No,
No, this is a hydraulic for the, I'm sorry, yeah, James. This is a model for the county's potable water delivery system.
Okay.
We can add recycled water too, of course, but it's for the potable
recycled water.
it's for the potable pipe system.
Okay, all right. And then are there any efforts to address the expense of electric costs in pumping wells? Thank you.
John,
So,
you want to take this
sure,
one?
So, I mean, I would, for sure, I mean, we are, as you know, electricity is, 18 or 19% of our budget. And so it's a huge it's our biggest cost item. We're always looking for ways to save energy. Again, this model will provide information that could help with that. But that really is sort of a separate effort in terms of, where, it may help us to say, if we had a well at this location, then we wouldn't have to pump so much up the hill, that kind of thing. It'll provide us that information. But we're also, by the way, as a side note, looking for solar at a number of our sites. But yes, we're always looking at how we can maximize, how we can best use the electricity and not pay as much as we pay the minimum amount we have to.
Thank you, Director. Thanks for the engineering.
Member
That'd be a quick.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you to everybody trying to explain it to us, because this has been fun. I'm excited that you guys are excited. Whether or not it can comprehend everything that this model does, I see its good points. It is kind of like talking to my kid about Pokemon. They know what they're talking about, but I'm just here supporting. Can you please give me some specific examples of what this model will do today if it's implemented, and where we can see the greatest impacts? And then later on, specifically, how we can improve our country's water system with this model? Anybody, whoever can answer?
Yeah, sure. James, you can take that one. Sure, go ahead.
All right,
you.
thanks, John. So right now, we've been using the model to, when we get our partners in the Fire Prevention Bureau ask us to look at fire flow availability, we've pinged the model a few times. We're still kind of beta testing how all that works, but we've been able to use the model to get those results many times turned around the same day, where it's usually been a few days to hand compute. I've had some folks reach out and ask, hey, this hydrant right here, do you have any idea what kind of flow it can deliver right now? We've been able to use the model to look that up and provide same day response. In terms of that example that Matt shared about being able to plan with fire prevention around how do we provide protection to an area when the system's going to be operating different from normal. We are using it for that purpose now. We are starting to build it into our development review processing workflow, which is probably what everyone wants to hear. But from a CIP standpoint, it's confirmed kind of some of the CIP projects we've already got in the works. And it's going to be adding to the CIP, no pun intended, but the CIP pipeline. So those are all ways it's being leveraged now. And
I can add a few things. So adding a few things. So an example that we already have used it for is if we took a tank out of service, what would, for maintenance, how would the system operate? So that's a quick example. In terms of the upcountry meter list, this could be helpful in several ways. We are looking at a number of wells that exist upcountry that we could add to the system, private wells. We're also looking at drilling our own wells at various locations. So this model would help us to identify, and that work is underway, to identify which wells would give us the biggest benefit that we would want to make sure we go after first. And so that's a really important one. It will also tell us where there are limitations in the upcountry system that by upsizing a pipe, we can make sure we get flow to areas. And then if we do go to some other, I shouldn't even bring this up, but if we go to some other way besides going through it in chronological order, then for example, if we were looking at a district, this could help us to identify how that district could be served, through, and what would be necessary and how we could then distribute the cost among the people in that district. So it could provide a lot of benefits to the upcountry system and every place.
Love to hear it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, members. You ready for a second round? Does anybody want to take a break? Member, you didn't get a turn yet. Does anybody want to take a break, or is this so exciting that you want to stay here and run through? Members, you want to keep going? Yay, okay.
Yeah, let's keep going.
So, Member Sugimura?
Yeah, thank you. So actually, of course, because Member Hodgins asked my question, I was going to ask, how does this impact my water meter list and how can it help? And by hearing what Director said, it sounds like this could, if we do look at something creative and looking at the list in terms of a district and not by numerical. But any comments you want to add to that?
Is it okay if I try to answer this one, John?
Sure. Go for it.
Try not to say anything too controversial, but so the way that I would see this being used is if we were to establish a source somewhere or upgrades that we're implementing at the Kamali treatment plant, one way or another, if we have additional source that allows us to start to offer meters again, let's say we could, let's say we had enough new source to offer 500 meters. If there was a region where specific improvements could be made that allowed those consumers to be connected, we could take that strategic approach, get those folks connected, and then when they pay their development fees to connect to the system, that those funds can then be leveraged to unlock the next area. We haven't looked in detail at the geography of, like heat. We haven't put together like a heat map of folks on the wait list, but identifying areas where there are a lot of users that can unlock fees can kind of create a little bit of a, I don't know what the term is, but taking the first step allows the next step to become possible, and then taking that step makes, because right now going out of order puts people in a position to implement improvements they can't afford. So the nature of the list, in my opinion, is fairly stifling to the fulfillment of water upcountry. So the model would be an incredible tool, and we will get clues to what some of those projects could be when we develop a system master plan that looks at the existing condition versus full build out of what's allowed by right upcountry.
Okay, we'll wait for that miracle to happen. I hear John. Director.
Steve, maybe you were looking for it almost be like a revolving fund, where the funds that come in from the first phase, the first group could be used to help start the second phase part.
Okay, great. I have another question. I'll wait.
We have a third round, I think. Councilmember Johnson?
Thank you, Chair. Some of this question's been touched on, but I want to kind of get in a little bit of it. Basically, and Director Stuffelbein, I'm sorry if you have to go over it again, but really the big picture is, how does this affect your upcoming budget? Do you need more funds? You mentioned capital improvement projects. picking and choosing by priorities based on community needs for potable water. I think that's where I'm curious. So is this going to direct you on prioritizing which capital improvements you decide to move forward in this year's budget? And I'd like to hear your kind of thought process on how this affects your budget. Because remember, we have the budget's just around the corner. And I'm really curious. I mean, I don't know if you're going to come before this committee before budget, but maybe now we could speak a little bit about how this does affect you.
Right. So, we've already, basically developed our preliminary CIP because of the timing of the budget process here, which takes years. I don't know. So, as we certainly will are looking to this model to help us refine that certainly next year, and it will really ultimately be the foundation for the capital improvement program. It'll be the most important information that we have, and we're already using it now to some degree. But this is going to be an interesting budget because, and I know I can't talk about budget too much, but we have our typical CIP that we'll be coming forward with that's based on the funding sources that we have, but then we have a whole nother group of projects that we think we're going to get federal funding for, and we're planning how we integrate those into our budget. And that's all, pretty much worked out. But again, we need to have some flexibility there because we don't know exactly what federal funding we're going to get, and so we have to make sure we're kind of ready for whatever happens. But yes, this will be the foundation for prioritizing our budget going forward.
That's really good data, and I appreciate you spinning all those plates, Director. It is hard to tell what the feds are going to come down to us, so thank you much for your response, and thank you, Chair. No further question.
Member Kama, second round.
Thank you, Chair. So I think earlier in the presentation, I think James, maybe it was you, I'm not sure, but that this model would be able to identify the shortcomings in our system. So will it identify all of our shortcomings or just some, depending on what you input into the model?
Yeah, great question. So wherever we have a rule being violated, so we build the model based on as-built, our fire protection plan. It is, every pipe size is dialed in. And based on the demands, what Matt was talking about with taking demand data and putting that in, that just kind of tells us how water's moving around as people use it. The fire flow scenario is specifically the one that typically dwarfs the domestic demand. And wherever fire flow, when that 30 seconds is done and the model spits out a result, wherever we have violations of our rules, whether it's velocity or pressure, it's going to tell us system-wide. So it can tell us a lot, and it's not going to omit any results. It will cover the entire system.
And I would add that we just got the maps on that we looked at, which is really fun to look at. And it actually kind of provides it in a kind of a yellow, red, orange kind of color, where in some areas, like, we're a little below what we need. Other cases, we're pretty far below. And in some cases, we're like really far below. And those are, of course, the ones we're going to prioritize first. So it tells us not only where the shortcomings are, but how significant the shortcomings are.
I'd like to mention, though, that this model is based on hydraulics, which is based on water flow. So there are things with the water system like leaks and condition that are outside this model that need to be considered when prioritizing recommendations and projects.
No. So my last question is, Director Stufflebean, you mentioned that you're going to try to get as much funding from whoever, wherever, whenever, and however. And a lot of it was from the federal government. What is the backup plan if all of those don't come our way?
So the backup plan is we use our own funding as much as possible and secure the funding that is available. So, I mean, there's the GET, there's the state revolving fund, which will certainly be there. So, what we're preparing is to try to go after everything, and whatever we get, that's what we will get. And, certainly we know we're going to have our own funding. Beyond that, we hope we get a lot more.
Right. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Chair Lee, your second round.
Thank you, no questions.
Member Paulton, second round.
Thank you, Chair. Some of my questions is, I'm stoked we just updated the West Maui Community Plan, the South Maui Community Plan's next up on deck, but like some of our community plans are older than our youngest member here. And I was wondering if that impacts this this plan, this water thing. That our community plan, or what you call the land use plan, is so old and outdated, but we're creating this water development plan thing to fit the land use plan, but their land use plan is older than Nohe.
Go ahead, Jane.
Oh, yeah. As we start to develop master plans for each system and look at full build out of whatever the adopted plan is at the time, it's going to incorporate whatever the adopted plan is. If we have a plan that is like, there's 5 systems, I'm not sure if there's, I think Central has multiple community plans, but if there's a system that, or an area that has a community plan that is being updated, I would imagine that we would kind of tie in to that process so that we don't build, so we don't program that full build out model scenario only to program it all over again when that new policy document is adopted. So we would try to be tied in to that process. And if that meant holding off, like I wouldn't want to wait too long to develop a master plan for an area just to wait for that updated policy document. But if it wasn't going to cause too much delay, we'd probably just try to tie into that that process of updating that document and kind of skip the initial step of programming it based on a policy we're going to abandon.
So you're aware that South Maui is currently in like phase 2 of 3 phases then, and you're not gonna, like once hopefully maybe this term we update the South Maui Community Plan, then you'll dial it in?
Yes.
Okay, and then I heard you guys want to go both ways on water, and in West Maui we only go really north to south and not south to north. Is that part of, like, you guys are figuring out the logistics of going south to north as well?
Yes.
Oh, sweet. And then like the cost analysis and all of that, and then like I know you guys said that. Oh, shoot. Okay.
You can finish your question.
Okay, that you are going to use this as a tool to prioritize where the funding is sent. Like, what if West Maui brings in number 1 or 2 of the revenue, and so we want to prioritize the water to West Maui because then we can fund more projects? Just throwing it out there.
Okay, thanks.
Right. It'll be a multi-variable analysis that will consider a wide variety of things in terms of how we recommend prioritizing the project.
Got it. Thanks.
Member Rollins Fernandez, questions for presenters?
Mahalo, Chair. Okay, so I will dovetail off of prioritizing repairs and improvements. One, I think it'll be great for me to be able to work with the department to present to the community what the next 3 years of improvements will look like and where they may be, just so that they have a heads up. 2, do you plan to try to work with like Public Works or state highways to coincide improvement with their road improvement so that you won't have to dig up the road after they just improvement.
So yes, we do that both on terms of the transportation department and the sewer department, so that, yeah, we don't, the last thing we want to do is to put in a new pipe and then put in a new road and have to go and tear up. Yeah, so we work with them, yeah, on a regular basis.
That's wonderful. Okay, and then, so I saw photos from this last storm exposing, I think that was a water line along South Kihei Road. Is your modeling showing like how to address that? Or is that just something you don't even need a modeling for to figure out how you're gonna, because that's like a main line, yeah?
Right. And we don't really need the modeling for that. I mean, that's just really the condition of the support materials around that pipe that we need to be fixed up. So, the model says the pipe's sufficient. It's just a matter of, we had a washout, we need to fix that. That's different than what the model shows.
But you're gonna plan to go Malka with that line or something in the future, right? Because it's already been exposed, so it'll likely be exposed again with storm events. Yeah.
James, I know you're working on that.
Yeah, that pipeline has been, we've been working with our field operations guys, and that was one that did kind of trigger and muscle its way into our CIP through excessive work orders. So going Malco with that line is very important. The one thing is, that is a road that receives federal funding, and we've been trying to kind of coordinate timing so that a federal aid road project with Public Works that we could, infuse some capital into that and do stuff at the same time. It is possible that this frequency of maintenance leads to a pipe project first. So we may decouple from Public Works' larger efforts on South Kihei Road and do something for that water main sooner than later.
Is that also kind of a similar plan for like Front Street? Because there's a main line that goes through Front Street as well, yeah?
And lower Honoapi'ilani Road as well.
I'm sorry, I'm not as familiar with those two pipelines as that South Kihei Road one. I apologize.
Thank you, member. That was the bell ring.
Oh, okay. I didn't hear it. Sorry. Mahalo, Chair.
Councilmember Sinensi.
Mahalo, Chair. No further questions, but Member Rollins Fernandez had brought up some, and Member Polton about our community plans. I think East Maui is maybe 20 years down the road, but staff will definitely email us, Director Stufflebean, our DHHL project, our Greenway Plan project, as well as some possible easements for infrastructure. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Sinensi. Member Hodges.
Thank you, Chair. I agree with Member Paulton, to coincide how we're going to get this information and what it's going to look like for the community plans, because that's an interesting one. I wish, though, that I was the same age as the community plan, but the Botox must be Botoxing because it's a little bit younger than I am. But I appreciate that compliment if I look like I was born in 1992. Thank you. Legitimately, thank you. I needed that today. But we were discussing shortcomings. Can you please describe what our current shortcomings are and what we're going to need to do besides this model and all of the CIPs to specifically fix our shortcomings? I know you said in some areas we're a little bit behind, in other areas we're kind of sort of behind, in other areas we're really behind. If you could kind of describe what that looks like.
Director.
Sure. There's really not as much by area. To some degree, it's really just pipeline by pipeline. Each pipeline kind of that has a shortcoming is identified. In the model, we have the maps that show every segment of pipeline, whether it's okay, whether it's in need, or whether it's really serious need. So every pipeline has that designation. So in terms of the information that we need to figure out how we prioritize, that's one piece of information. that the pipes are too small, or the velocity or the pressure isn't up to our standard. When James talks about the rule, he's talking about our standard for what we want to see in terms of pressure and velocity in the pipelines in the various scenarios. But as Matt mentioned, we also look at the condition of the pipeline, which also was done by Carollo. And so in some cases, it will be the condition, not the size of the pipeline that we need to look at. And then, of course, there's the whole issue of source, right, which is one of our major shortcomings in terms of developing new source for all of our systems. And, I've been distributing out the monthly report that talks about all the things we're doing to looking at source. I'd be glad to come and make a presentation on that. We have 30-some things that we're doing around the island, around the county, to look for new sources. And that is a lot of dishes to keep spinning, for sure. But we're looking at sources everywhere we can find them. And a lot of them are tied to federal funding, of course.
Thank you. Can we please schedule that about source? I would appreciate that. I think that's all the questions I have for today, but thank you so much. I appreciate all of this really informative information.
Thank you. Chair has a couple of questions, and then if we have time and the members want an additional questions and the presenters are patient, that we could do that. I want to make it's a question comment. Would you consider this to be like a living document? This is something that's going to, the model can be, as you add things and as you develop it, it's recorded and is part of the whole program?
Yeah, so a model like this is typically updated on a 6-month to 12-month basis. So yeah, I would consider it to be a living document.
As far as like the field data collection process, is that like the members of the water department literally going out, opening a hydrant, taking the pressure and what the flow rate is, and then comparing it to what the model says it would be? Like that kind of field testing? And I don't know if that's accurate. I just want to kind of get a clue of what you do to, you run the model, and then you go out and you compare and check the results, and that was your beta testing?
Yeah, Matt, go ahead.
So for our model calibration, we collected a bunch of field data for that. But for the beta testing that was referred to, it was really comparing the model versus the hand calculations that were previously performed, and to see whether and we found in the places that we checked, the model and the hand calculations were giving a similar results. In terms of longer term updates and calibration, that's part of the maintenance process that we still need to work with DWS to determine what things would be done at what type of schedule. So that's still to be determined. But but in general, we don't want to do extra testing just for the model purposes. We would take information that's collected through existing processes and use that data as much as possible, not wanting to burden the operations staff with extra testing.
Thank you. So whichever the three of you would want to answer this, the discussion of connecting the upcountry and central systems, is that something that's currently two different models? Is that a whole nother project to integrate the two?
We talked about that. Matt, why don't you go ahead and discuss that? We can discuss that at the very top.
So we currently have them as two separate models. We can work to integrate them if something's actually constructed, but for now it can be an input out of one and an output out of one model and an input out of the other if we want to do some kind of simulation that involves both parts.
Thank you. So members, it's 3:14. We still have time. You have a third, you want a third round of
So
questions?
this is my second question because I was late, so
Okay.
sorry. If I could, Chair. So over the weekend, as you know, right, we had heavy rains. And Director, I got to ask you this question. This is Hapapa Gulch. So Hapapa Gulch, James and Director, again, there was a problem, and we all didn't have, not we all, but a whole bunch of us didn't have water. And the same gulch had a problem in December 21. And I was told that we had the helicopters again, came and brought the supplies, and it was a really big deal. Appreciate the department working Friday, Saturday, Sunday to get us with water. And thanks again for the water buffaloes. But I wonder if the department can put it on your priority to let us know what is going to happen so that we don't have the same damage happening every time there's a major storm. I was told that was because we didn't get FEMA funding, and could we not use our own funding to fix it rather than waiting from 2021, oops, again, 25, and it's going to happen again. But can you put it on your CIP, or can you let us know what help you may need to solve it?
I can speak to this one a little bit, John, and then you can.
I mentioned that we kind of thought this question might come up, so we're ready to answer it. So go ahead, James.
Yeah, so just for awareness, after the 2020 event happened and the pipeline was repaired, our field operations guys did install about a half dozen gate valves in certain strategic locations that allowed the loss of service to be mitigated better than it was in 2021. The replacement project for those pipelines, I don't have my CIP manager here to give us tighter details, but it's at about 80% design. The goal is to go out to bid with it this year, but we are trying to plug it in for federal hazard mitigation grant program funding. I'm not familiar with it having lost any FEMA funding, so we're trying to get some FEMA funding for it, but there was no loss of FEMA funding. We're still in the application process. So if we have to replace that pipeline through just through our water fund, then that those monies would be used for something like this.
So James, the FEMA loss was before you got here. That was an issue from before you were here. But yeah, so I mean, the answer is, I think, as James mentioned, that it's in progress to fix that. And unfortunately, the storm came before it was done. It's we feel it's a shame, but we do have like I said, the design is nearly finished. We'll be putting it out to bid. Whether or not we get federal funding, that's a project we're gonna be doing for sure.
Okay.
But we think it's a high probability of getting federal funding, so we certainly want to make the effort on that one.
Okay, great. My office is being asked to write a letter to the congressional, so we'll gladly do it. Thank you very much.
Member Johnson?
Thank you, Chair. All my questions have been answered.
Member Kama?
We got so excited that you answered all our questions. Thank you, Chair.
Chair Lee?
Chair, I apologize. She left at 3:15.
Okay. Member Paulton?
Oh, just a short one. What is, I might have missed it because, it's makahiki, but what is the time frame that we expect this to be finished, and how will it be distributed to us?
I'm not sure what you mean by distribute. I mean, the model's finished. We're using it now. Yeah, it's finished.
Oh.
It's really an operational model. So we wouldn't really there's no really need to distribute it, but we'll be using it, and we are already using it.
Oh, so it's an after the fact, you guys finished the model. Are you gonna give us like a summary of how the projects pan out to be prioritized, or like the, I guess, extrapolation that you got from this? Or is that what today was?
No. So
it seemed a little surface level.
That's the CIP. The CIP is our prioritization of projects. and the model is used to help develop the CIP. So that's really when we bring it to you is when we bring you the CIP.
Okay, so we're gonna get in the budget, the CIP is based on this model that's finished that helped you to prioritize this year's budget request.
To some degree, again, the timing wasn't perfect because we had to get the CIP in before the model was done, but we're certainly using it as much as we can. In future years, the model will be done, we'll use it more fully and as Matt said, not just the model, but also condition assessment, other information that we have, the needs and so on. But yeah, we're using it now, we'll really use it fully next year.
And do we expect a partnership? I think Mr. James, the water guy, said that 6 to 12 months it'll be updated. Do we plan to stick with the same Mr. Matt Wong?
We're going to hire Matt. No, he mentioned that he'll be training our staff to do it. So we will keep Carollo. Our intention is to keep Carollo on under contract and maintain it until they can hand it off to the county staff that we're ready to maintain it.
Oh, okay, awesome. And then we would just consult as needed basis with Mr. Huang. Okay, great. I'm so glad I asked that question because I must have missed that whole, like you guys finished it already. Lonoy kamakahiki.
Thank you. Member Rollins Fernandez?
Mahalo, Chair. Just a quick clarifying question. So Chair Cook called it a living document. Is it a document? I thought it was like a software, like Minecraft.
Yeah, that was kind of a metaphor, I think. No, it's a software package that will be modified, kept up to date, utilized in many different ways. But certainly, you want to keep it up to date and put in all the new information as new things are developed in the system. You want to make sure the system is completely up to date. So that in that way, it is always a living thing.
Updated, ongoing process. Okay, very good. Every 6 months, it'll be updated as far as if there's expansion or repairs and.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't say necessarily. I mean, it'll be updated as anything that's major that's done. We'll probably just implement it. We'll update it right then. But then every 6 months, maybe you kind of take a thorough look to make sure everything's caught up, that kind of thing.
I see. Well, hello. I appreciate that clarification. Hello, Chair.
Member Sinensi, any further questions?
No questions, Chair. Thank you.
Member Hodges, any further questions? Okay. So, yeah. It'll become a document after they print out the results on paper. Just leaving.
We'll send the computer code.
Leaving this on trying to leave it on a light note. I really want to appreciate the presenters, and I want to appreciate the staff, and I want to appreciate all of the members for the first WAI committee meeting in 2025. Got off to a little bit of a shaky technical start, but I want to commend the water department for something that they've been working on for over a year and a half, and the fact that they have gotten to this point where they can make the presentation and it's a functioning tool to assess our entire water system. It's a huge accomplishment, and I'm very grateful and excited for the entire community and grateful to them. If there's any other further discussion? Members, if there's no objections, the chair will defer this item.
No objections.
No objection.
Members, this concludes today's Water and Infrastructure Committee meeting. Thank you everywhere, and a big thank you to Mr. Jensen, Mr. Huang, Ms. Ishida for being here this afternoon. The time is now 3:24, and this meeting is now adjourned.